sorts.
I really like that, but let me pose a potential other avenue we might be able to take, because I think this might be interesting too, and just a way to give Eddie Brock a little bit more personality. What if everybody is obsessed with Spider-Man? The only thing they want to read about in the papers is Spider-Man, and he is completely opposed to giving Spider-Man press.
Okay.
And he's trying to get attention to the stories that he wants to write about. And I guess you could pick anything. You could pick, murder or police scandals.
One thing that I think would be cool is if you want to do kind of more closely to the comics with Eddie Brock reporting on a serial killer, like he's trying to do hard journalism that's not connected to superheroes at all. If you want to have Eddie Brock writing on a serial killer, make it Cletus Cassidy.
Oh my god, that's brilliant, Ian. That's brilliant. I want a good Cletus Cassidy, too. I've been dying for a movie Carnage for years.
And you're never... Because, like, if you're going to make... like, honestly, I don't think you can do Venom well until a fourth movie if you're going to, like, really go for it. And I don't think you can do Carnage right until, like, a fifth or a sixth movie.
Well, I think it might be interesting if they set up Cletus Cassidy in Daredevil. Because Cletus Cassidy would make perfect sense to put in that show. Tonally.
Yeah.
And then you have him established in the Marvel Cinematic Universe way before you put him in a Spider-Man movie. Would they do that? I don't know. I don't know how they're going to play around with the whole, we have, all these Spider-Man characters now, and we don't want to just put them in Spider-Man movies. It's going to be interesting to see how Marvel and Sony tag team and play around with that. It could potentially be a train wreck. I hope it's not, but there's a good chance that it might be. But I think that's a good way to use that, is like you take Cletus Cassidy and you set him up early. You can do the same thing with Eddie Brock. You can have him be a reporter nosing around in Daredevil's activities, too. That would be a perfect way to set up a whole bunch of characters and then do the really interesting stuff with them in the movies. It remains to be seen.
It's just one of those things where you'd really have to take some time to set up a Spider-Man, to set up Venom and Carnage really well, because those characters, in order to work, you really need to spend some time with it. And, the other thing I think about Eddie Brock, that, the reason I think Eddie Brock and by extension Venom would make a really good movie villain, especially for Spider-Man, is we always talk about Spider-Man with this idea of learning, coming of age, learning to take responsibility for your actions and stuff like that, and that's definitely a part of growing up from being a teenager into becoming a man. But another thing that teenagers do that I don't think people focus on enough is they take too much responsibility for things. We all knew that kid growing up who, everything had to be his fault.
Yeah.
It didn't matter how little control he had over it. He blamed himself for everything. And so I think you can do some interesting stuff
and Peter
there.
Parker's one of those characters.
Yeah, where, you can have Eddie Brock be a character who just, it's never his fault, no matter what. If he gets a speeding ticket, it's because, it's a construction area and it, he was just going the normal speed, but he didn't realize it was construction.
That cop had it out for me, yada yada.
Yeah, so that's how you write Eddie Brock, and you write Peter Parker as having to take responsibility for Eddie Brock, even though, end of the day, he could not possibly have done anything about it. And so I think there's a really great character arc to tell with Peter Parker via Eddie Brock, where it's you have to learn to take responsibility for what you did, but at the end of the day, you have to realize that you are not God. You can't control everything.
Yeah.
I think that's a really good potential there. And that's why I think you need 4 movies to set it up.
And that's also interesting because in a lot of versions, Eddie Brock is also super religious.